Jai sir, I'm Shailesh from National Defense. May I request you to please talk about the collateral damage or the casualty which we suffered, especially the political controversy which was created lately about the martyrs.
The casualties which we suffered, obviously every soldier we lose is important, especially from the point of view of the family of the soldier. I'm not trying to trivialize it, but considering the context of this particular operation, these 4 or 5 casualties happened during the Trans-LC fire. And this Trans-LC firing, of course, there's been a ceasefire on since 2023, I think. But before that Trans-LC fire, people would get injured. So in this, there was a heightened Trans-LC firing for those 4-5 days. And obviously, such kind of casualties are expected, and no one denied this. Actually, no one asked. The issue is that no one asked because everyone thought that it was too less considering the scale of this operation. So it only came about later. The fact of the matter is that Pakistan's inventory of its platforms today, 70 or 80% is of Pakistan, Chinese origin. Whether it is land-based, air platforms, some naval platforms. We also have an inventory of foreign platforms, and when we get those platforms, the maintenance and serviceability is the responsibility of the OEM. And their representatives are normally in the countries in which this equipment is deployed because they're supposed to keep them serviceable. It's been used for war fighting, and in war, if this equipment is not available, then what's the use? So Chinese OEM people would have been there, and that's what Chinese have admitted, that their people were there. So there's nothing new in this. Today in our country also there would have been Russian OEMs, there could be French, there could be Israeli OEMs actually supporting that same equipment which you're holding. So it's a contractual obligation, which we must understand this. Satellite imageries, they are commercially available. You can buy it from Americans, you can buy it from Chinese. So to say that provision of satellite imageries to Pakistan by Chinese would have, provided some kind of intelligence would again be incorrect to say. What goes below this, that means you're targeting data through secure VPN links, etc. That could be passed, about which we actually would not know. So that could be falling under the thing of speculation. But 1 or 2 things I can say. Pakistan's understanding of the situation was quite poor even in the maritime domain. I can give you one example. Their daily briefings would tell where a carrier battle group was moving in the Arabian Sea. And when I checked back from the Western Naval Command as to where the carrier battle group was on those days, it was almost about 100 to 200 nautical miles off from that place. So means either they were getting wrong inputs of our carrier battle group, or means they were just not accurate because they were dependent only on foreign sources for this. Why I am saying so is because their long-range maritime aircraft did not fly at all. So if you don't fly long-range maritime aircraft, if you don't have satellites, how do you get images or how do you know where the carrier battle group is? It is from outside. So the source of information may have been, so it's a speculation on that side. But on the other side, the army has told me that whenever they redeployed a couple of their strategic in the sense, this BrahMos units, land-based units, the Paki did come to know that we have deployed this. So was it based on satellite intelligence or was it based on human intelligence? So that's again a method of speculation. There was a small episode about what I think Air Marshal Bharti was asked, that Kirana Hills episode. I think I'll clarify this. At occasions it's been asked whether Kirana Hills were hit or not. That's where their nuclear facilities are there. And with Bharti had rightly clarified that we did not target Kirana Hills. I can maybe given kind of an explanation. Before those strikes, we had sent in a lot of loiter ammunitions at Sargodha. And Kirana Hills is about 10 kilometers north of Sargodha. So the loiter ammunition is looking for radars which are in around Sargodha. And it's got a lifetime, means time. It will loiter for about 2 hours, and once it doesn't find a target, then it comes down and hits somewhere. It must have come and hit one of those hills. So that could be one of the reasons as to what people asked. Yes, because Pakistani media also showed some kind of images in which there was smoke coming out from Kirana Hills, and they were asking whether to invoke the Union War Book or not to invoke the Union War Book. We had not declared a kind of a war. So while Union War Book was not being, but its provisions were being invoked, the Coast Guard was placed under command of the Navy. Similarly, we started coordinating with the BSF, with MHA getting involved. Then, of course, is Raksha Mantri sanctioned Emergency Procurement 5 and Emergency Procurement 6 for capital and revenue. So this whole process started. DRDO pitched in its bid by offering us equipment which are still under development or trial on experimental kind of a basis, which we could do. So all these activities were happening simultaneously between 23rd to about 6th. Rehearsals, planning, escalation matrix being developed, constant meetings and refinement of plans. And this is happening all across, right from the political level, the NSA level, RM, Chief of Staff Committee, the service headquarter level, and then commands and below, and strike units. Now let me talk about a few enablers which actually helped us conclude these operations very successfully. One is exercise tropics. The Navy does annual exercise tropics, and most of its ships were out before this particular operation. So they had in fact just finished this exercise about a week back or so, and the ships were already actually coming back into harbor. They had to reload ammunition and go back on operational deployment. So we were almost able to deploy 40 surface combatants, including a carrier battle group, as compared to very minuscule amount of surface combatants, 4 or 5 of the Pakistan Navy. We are in the midst of conducting a communication exercise between what kind of a communication architecture should we have in case we have theater commands. So that communication exercise was on. That was exercise known as Haldi Ghati, and it was one of the debriefs of the exercise which was holding on 22nd when the news started breaking in of this Pahalgam attacks. So that's the point actually we said this will continue with this communication exercise. So our communication architecture was well rehearsed. So it was already existing, and we are able to do that. Next thing which helped us was Army had deployed a secure mobile phone for their operations, and we had almost about 7,000-8,000 of those sets. They were distributed to the Air Force and the Navy, and also to the Foreign Secretary, Home Secretary, Defense Secretary, and important appointment holders. So we did not depend on social media like WhatsApp or Telegram to exchange messages. So in fact, after 23rd, gradually everyone did not leave any kind of a digital imprint on this social media or the digital media. No imprint was left. And this would have been a matter of surprise for a number of foreign agencies who normally track such kind of important telephone numbers. So we all know this. Then one more thing which helped me was creation of a research cell. So on one hand, they were confident that they have struck, but they had no idea what they had struck. So, and on the second hand, they were seeing that they were losing this capability to strike. LC was very responsive, and there were the deterrents which the Indian Navy had produced. So combined, I think, with all this, they picked up the phone and thought it's better to actually talk rather than continuing with this particular warfare. If I had to list out a couple of reasons for India's victory, I would say that we had better situational awareness, better battlefield transparency, because we are better networked. And Army, Navy, and Air Force, this situation was available to us in one manner for all of us. So hence we were able to take decisions better. So we not only knew the results of our strikes, almost real time, but also knew the results of his strikes, that he has failed. Chairman of Vivekananda International Foundation, Shri Guri Murthy ji, Director VIF, Dr. Arvind Gupta, members of the foundation, scholars, academicians, ladies and gentlemen, a very good afternoon to you. It's almost a year and 3 months since we concluded. I mean, in some ways ongoing. Major part of that active operations got concluded, but this remains a subject of interest for the strategic community, not only in India, but abroad also. Dr. Arvind was right in saying that it changed India, but I think it changed the other side more. That we'll discuss in the aftermath. But the measures undertaken to overcome these kind of deficiencies which people noticed in this particular operation, combined with how this warfare is changing and with global uncertainty all together, throws up new kind of challenges for all of us. So I'll not only speak about the operation per se, Operation Sindoor, but also try and see in its aftermath as to what's happening and what kind of challenges India may face in future. Let me start by saying that politics and war are inseparable. Means Clausewitz said that war is a continuation of politics by other means. A nation's political interests are paramount; they're supreme, and armed forces are one of the instruments actually to protect it. Just one of the instruments. There are many instruments for the government. And in a political democracy, whenever the government decides to use force for attainment of its political objectives, then I think it's the role of the armed forces, or the defense forces, or the military, I think is twofold. Firstly, is to provide options to the government for application of that particular force so that it can achieve its objectives. And second is to provide some kind of an confidence to the government. So government can have as many options as it desires, provided it has spent that much amount of money during peacetime to develop its capabilities. The options also depend on the military leadership, the kind of training they have imparted, the kind of war games they have conducted, the kind of contingencies they have played out, the kind of rehearsals which they have carried out. This will increase the number of options that are available to us. Each option will have certain kind of a risk involved into it, and also it will satisfy the need, the political need for which force was to be used. So it's an interplay between risk and this attainment of political objectives. You try and achieve a target which is very deep inside. Obviously the risk for attainment of that will be more. It's likely to get intercepted. So all these things, there's interplay is always, there's always a risk. Second thing I said about was confidence. That's the role of the military, to provide that confidence to the government so that it can take good decisions. No military, I would say, is 100% prepared 100% of the time. There will always be deficiencies in all armed forces. Your assessment of the enemy will never be complete. It's an ongoing kind of a process. But as we had seen in the past, that sometimes in front of the political leadership, people bring out the kind of deficiencies which they have. This particular operation stands out in some particular manner, in which all the three services and myself, right from day one, did not bring any of these kind of deficiencies which we could have said, okay, for this we would be able to not achieve A, B, C. And we continue to tell the government that whatever decision they take, we should be able to carry out operation, not for 1, 2, but a number of days. Options, when we say for force application, you all know that after the Uri terror attack, there were surgical strikes. At the time we went via the land route. Thereafter, after Pulwama, we used the air route with large force engagements, almost about 40 plus aircrafts, main and a similar kind of a decoy mission operating somewhere else. Sindoor, we decided to use a third option, that is exploit the lower airspace. That means it would have kept the threshold of conflict low, it would have assured success, and then there would have been an element of surprise. In fact, whenever you are exercising any option, if you repeat that strategy time and again, the chances of success will be dim. So every time you will have to think of a new strategy. Uri was different, he never expected it. Balakot was entirely different. It was not in J&K, it was in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. And Sindoor was entirely different from what we had done earlier. So you have to have a new strategy always. You can't repeat an old strategy, otherwise the chances of success of that strategy you'll not have. Next is about capability development. I think we all learn lessons from whatever we do. So Balakot strikes probably had their own lessons for Pakistan as well as for us. We learned that, long range precision strikes are a must. Standoff capability is a must. Post-strike damage assessment is a must. You have to get back the proof of what you have done. So after that, we started investing in creating these kind of capabilities. So you had Scalp, Rampage, Crystal Maze, Hammer. We had Palm 400, Excalibur ammunition. So all these kind of capabilities, not only we acquired, but we started to operationalize it. Pakistan probably, they learned a different kind of a lesson from Balakot. They were worried about air defenses, so probably they invested more in HQ-9, PL-15 and such kind of aircraft. In between, I must also say that this was the period when government had given us emergency procurement. So I was talking about, the government should be able to spend some money. So all democracies are always short of money. But then the government did give us this emergency procurement 124, largely arising out of our troubles in the northern border. And we created these capabilities and we could have shifted them either way. So Ukraine war also gave us a number of options for how force is used. That conflict was very enriched with kind of a lessons. Different kind of capabilities were used with effect. So we procured a number of drones, lateral ammunition and counter-UAS systems. Now I'll talk about the decisions which were taken at various levels and how they were taken, what kind of decisions were taken. You are aware, let's talk about the political decisions. You are aware about the political decision that we, the perpetrators of this particular strike, will not be spared and will not tolerate cross-border terrorism. This was conveyed by none other than the Honorable Prime Minister in his speech in Patna on 24th. In fact, on 23rd, the other instruments of power, how do you want to use diplomacy, your economic power or trade, those decisions were also taken on the 23rd. But the decision how force is to be applied, that was taken on the 29th when the Chiefs of Staff Committee, the Raksha Mantri and the NSA met the Honorable Prime Minister. But in this period between 23rd and 29th, there was a number of activities which are happening between us. The Chief of Staff Committee must have met on almost about 4 or 5 times. Equal amount of times he would have met along with the National Security Advisor. The Raksha Mantri held his meetings along with NSA on 2 or 3 occasions. So it was a kind of an interplay when we went to the government with our options. We had a number of options which we had discussed with the NSA. So on 29th when we went there, I think the big decision over there was that we should teach Pakistan a big lesson because India will not tolerate cross-border terrorism and this must end. So in words like, it's beautiful beyond soch ke bahar ho. Then of course, second thing was whatever we are supposed to do or whatever we are planning to do, we gave out these options which I told you that we will use the lower airspace. The Prime Minister was only, he told us only one thing, that he's not under any kind of political pressure to do it immediately. He said, do it at your own time, but ensure that there is no reason for failure, either human or because of technical reasons. And we should have evidence of whatever we do. And the fourth thing which he told us was complete freedom of action. So for the military, actually, there could be nothing better than this. What they want always is clear political direction, and that was available to us. It was in this particular meeting only. We also included in the target list, we also included Bhavalpur. That was on insistence of Raksha Mantri because the Prime Minister is saying that we need to do something big. The target was at a distance, but yet we included it. And once we included Bhavalpur in the target list, use of air became inherent into it. Loiter ammunitions and drones would not have been able to reach, or that success wouldn't have been assured. As far as decisions at the operational level are concerned, these were held along with NSA, with the Chiefs of Staff Committee, myself including there. Identification of targets, that was a major challenge for us. Some had been vacated after Prime Minister had said that on 24th that we'll go after these terror targets. Some had been reoccupied, some had been relocated. So there was a constant battle going on between us intelligence agencies, our military intelligence, as to which are the camps which we should strike, which should have that effect. So that was then of course, in this, there were generation of multiple options. I have told about how options were generated for application of force, but over here, there are options as to what should be targeted, at what level should it be targeted. The rules of engagement, they were decided in this. The rules of engagement were quite clear actually, that anything which is impeding your carrying out your mission successfully, that should be targeted, and anything in self-defense is part of engagement, the rules of engagement. Over here, I would like to talk about two words, accuracy and precision. You must have seen the precision of our strikes that was available to us on the television screens. But the accuracy of that information was because of the work of the intelligence agencies. So there were two things, and I must acknowledge that the accuracy of the intelligence which was produced by intelligence agencies under the insistence of NSA was good, and so was the precision. The third level where decisions were taken were at the level of the Chiefs of Staff Committee. The Chiefs of Staff Committee, the kind of decisions were taken were service alert levels, at what stage of this conflict, at what alert levels would all the three services should be, timing of the attack, the day of the attack, that are all based on an analysis of their flying activities from 23rd onwards till about 6th, as to what time do they fly, what time do they rest, what time do they come. And of course, we wanted to minimize the civilian casualties, that's why we chose that midnight hour. Initially, there was a doubt if we would be able to strike at midnight and yet obtain evidence of those strikes in pitch darkness. But then we were confident of the capability which we had created, and we said, yes, we will be able to do that at midnight, reduce the chances of civilian casualties, collect that kind of an evidence, and of course, it helped us in maintaining surprise. Next is mobilization. The armed forces are not deployed on the border all the time, so some kind of a selective mobilization had to be done as a precautionary kind of a measure. Sometimes what happens is this leads to a competitive kind of mobilization from both the sides, and this can then lead on to further escalation of a conflict. And this I had witnessed myself during Balakot. Every commander who's at the border, he would like 100% preparedness, and he would like to mobilize with 100% troops over there. So it is a great challenge to keep telling commanders, no, you can't do this. So that was a big challenge for us, that you don't allow people to mobilize so that you can maintain surprise. Reorientation of air defense, that was another major challenge. You all know that we were trying to integrate the three air defense structures of the three services together, but they were all being done in priority for the northern borders, and then we had to suddenly reorient it for the western borders. We didn't have a functional counter US grid, counter unmanned aerial system grid, which we were hastily able to put up, more based on procedural aspects rather than physical integration of networks. We were able to prepare good escalation matrix with 5 stages of escalation, about which I will talk about in the aftermath. As far as service headquarters are concerned, parallelly they were working. That involved targeting data, that involved survey of that by military survey, large amount of calculations, Air Force uses mensuration, etc., to get exact DEM data, exact lat-long data, because we are hitting targets and we wanted to have accuracies in meters actually. So that involved a lot of staff work. It also involved rehearsals and testing of this, whatever we are going to use, because we had acquired them, but we had never used them earlier. So that was required. Then, of course, earmarking of units for those kind of strikes, relocation of these assets, especially air defense assets, from the northern borders to the west. Most of our M777 howitzers, which use Excalibur ammunition, were deployed on the western borders. They had to be redeployed. Similarly, in case of MR-SAMs, BrahMos, all this had to be redeployed. The demand for satellite imagery and intelligence kept multiplying the moment this thing happened. And we knew that we are going in for operations, and the Defense Space Agency was at its wits' end actually, how to meet these increasing demands. ISRO came in with a big help. A couple of satellites of there were placed under command, couple of ground stations were placed, and from about 24 hours revisit cycle on a particular area, we are able to get it down to about 8 hours. Then, of course, we used normal contracts for commercial imagery with other companies which are doing this business globally. Similarly, for defense cyber agencies, they had to coordinate a lot of work with the service cyber agencies. Cyber is one field in which people, try to maintain secrecy, all services also. So one had to really force your way onto the service cyber agencies, get their act together, understand what kind of capabilities we have created, because no one is wanting to tell that what kind of capabilities that have been created, and then to integrate it into a operational plan which we are going to execute. So that was one challenge. Then, of course, DGDIA, that's the intelligence, so coordinating all kind of intelligence together as to how things will happen. So this was major work which was going on parallelly with, so sometimes people ask, why did you take so long actually, from 23rd to 6th, because all these processes had to been gone through. Some defense-related decisions were also important, that which the Ministry of Defense or Raksha Mantri along with us took. First is whether to invoke the Union War Book or not to invoke the Union War Book. We had not declared a kind of war. So while Union War Book was not being, but its provisions were being invoked, the Coast Guard was placed under command of the Navy. Similarly, we started coordinating with the BSF, with MHA getting involved. Then, of course, is Raksha Mantri sanctioned Emergency Procurement 5 and Emergency Procurement 6 for capital and revenue. So this whole process started. DRDO pitched in its bed by offering us equipment which are still under development or trial on experimental kind of a basis, which we could do. So all these activities were happening simultaneously between 23rd to about 6th. Rehearsals, planning, escalation matrix being developed, constant meetings and refinement of plans. And this is happening all across, right from the political level, the NSA level, RM, Chief of Staff Committee, the service headquarter level, and then commands and below, and strike units. Now let me talk about a few enablers which actually helped us conclude these operations very successfully. One is exercise Tropex. The Navy does an annual exercise Tropex, and most of its ships were out before this particular operation. So they had in fact just finished this exercise about a week back or so, and the ships were already actually coming back into harbor. They had to reload ammunition and go back on operational deployment. So we were almost able to deploy 40 surface combatants, including a carrier battle group, as compared to very minuscule amount of surface combatants, 4 or 5 of the Pakistan Navy. We are in the midst of conducting a communication exercise between what kind of a communication architecture should we have in case we have theater commands. So that communication exercise was on. That was exercise known as Haldi Ghati, and it was one of the debriefs of the exercise which was holding on 22nd when the news started breaking in of this Pahalgam attacks. So that's the point actually we said this will continue with this communication exercise. So our communication architecture was well rehearsed. So it was already existing, and we are able to do that. Next thing which helped us was Army had deployed a secure mobile phone for their operations, and we had almost about 7,000-8,000 of those sets. They were distributed to the Air Force and the Navy, and also to the Foreign Secretary, Home Secretary, Defense Secretary, and important appointment holders. So we did not depend on social media like WhatsApp or Telegram to exchange messages. So in fact, after 23rd, gradually everyone did not leave any kind of a digital imprint on this social media or the digital media. No imprint was left. And this would have been a matter of surprise for a number of foreign agencies who normally track such kind of important telephone numbers. So we all know this. Then one more thing which helped me was creation of a research cell, which was in fact a term which we wanted to use for implementation cell. So in case we create theater commands, how are we going to do it? So I had a number of officers, 6, 7 of them, a good team, one of the best set of officers there. So they were directly under me, helping me out. Otherwise, CDS is just one man and few staff officers. So I had a team of 6, 7 officers. And of course, this initiative of jointness and integration, which came about along with this appointment of CDS. That's one of his job actually, to promote jointness, create integrated structures. So a number of such initiatives like all these things which I told you about mobilization from the northern borders to the west, that involved a movement of a large number of aircrafts, people moving to ranges for rehearsals, etc., for firing of this equipment. That also involved a large number of movement of trains, equipment. All this was done at the level of maybe 1-star or 2-star officers. No one asked me anything, or no one troubled the higher leadership on this account, which wasn't the case in past conflicts where people had to intervene at the level of chiefs or vice chiefs to give a decision, no, do this. So that didn't happen. We had kind of not integrated our inventories, but there was a visibility of inventory of ours, all 3 services. So services knew that if there is something which is unserviceable because of A, B, C spares, if it's available with the other service, they are quickly demanded, given, released, and this equipment was made serviceable. And that's because a large number of equipment among the 3 services today is of a common use. So you have MR-SAMs, Akash systems, helicopters, BrahMos missiles. They are all the same. So they have a common inventory of spares, etc. So that was used. Then of course is air defense networks, IACCS, then your Akash Tir and Trigun. These are the 3 air defense networks or the 3 services. They all create a separate picture. There is no, that used to happen in the past, but we are able to integrate this. So we have a comprehensive air picture of the complete airspace over India and maybe some kilometers across the border available. And this was all integrated in some manner with our fire control systems. And of course, jointness and integration was also carried on by not only by the Chiefs of Staff Committee, but the number of subcommittees which form part of the Chiefs of Staff Committee. As far as this operation is conduct of this operation is there, it was, we all know, we can say that it was done in 3 phases. Phase 1 was the surgical strikes which happened on the night of 6th and 7th morning. There were 9 targets which were struck. Air Force struck Buridke and Bawalpur, and the Army struck 7 targets. Then was this period of 8th and 9th, in which Pakistan tried to say that they launched Operation Makal Haq, that's Battle of Truth. And this particular 2 days, a lot of loiter ammunitions, some kind of drones, etc., were used by both sides. If I were to say this particular time was taken by both sides for deceiving each other, for sizing up each other, for creating gaps, assessing your vulnerabilities and plugging it, and creating new vulnerabilities. So for example, we knew that on 8th and 9th, you must have seen that we used Herop and Harpic loiter ammunition to target their anti-radiation loiter ammunition. They loiter at a particular area, and if some radiating medium comes up or radars or something, they go and hit that. So that's what we were using. But before that, we were using a meat ammunition, which is actually an air defense target decoy. So that goes, it masquerades as an aircraft, and that forces people to open up their radars, and that's followed by this particular Herop and Harpic. And then it creates vulnerabilities because you do not know when aircrafts are coming whether to open up your radars or don't have to open. So that kind of tactics created some kind of a gaps, physical gaps because of destruction of some radars, and procedural because the enemy was confused as to whether it should open up radars. So all this, as said, was a period in which we are trying to create vulnerabilities, plug our vulnerabilities, trying to deceive each other, sizing up each other, and creating gaps. On the line of control, of course, there were focused fire assaults which happened. And on the 10th, at the phase 3, I would say, that's Bunyan al-Marsus, the operation which Pakistani said is a wall of lead. That started as, and they declared that almost to a couple of countries that they're going to teach India a lesson in the next 48 hours and going to start at about 1 o'clock PST, and that's about 1:30 PST. But unfortunately or fortunately, they folded up within about 8.5 hours. So in this phase 3 of the operation, we carried out 4 waves of air attacks, first starting at 2:30, 4:30, 10:30, and last one going at almost at about 1:45, 12:30. So if I have to sum up, this Operation Sindoor was a different kind of a war from all the wars which we had fought earlier till now. So this was a mix of non-contact, largely non-contact and contact warfare. It was truly multi-domain because operations were handling not only the air, maritime and land domain, but also in cyber and electromagnetic spectrum as well as space. It was a mix of kinetic and non-kinetic operations. It was networked. I spoke about our air defense network. That gave us a fused kind of a picture. They were non-linear. Normally, most of the warfare, it's been linear in sense we take on objectives very sequentially. So over here, there was no sequential attacking of objectives. We stuck objectives which are far too in depth. And of course, there was a bit element of intelligence involved into it, artificial intelligence also. Let me now talk about why did Pakistan on 10th at about 9:30 they picked up the phone and they said that they wanted to talk. And why did this happen? Because that very night, a night before that, they were very confident that they'll continue for about 48 hours. And they folded up almost in 8 hours and 30 minutes. I think to be fair to the Pakistanis, I would say that they carried out certain strikes, but they did not know the effectiveness of those strikes. So they assumed that they have done some strikes. So the first thing which was happened to them was they assumed that they have stuck, and something they would have caused some kind of a damage. By about 9:30, they were sure. By this time, Indian Air Force had struck Noor Khan and Sargodha. If you remember Sargodha, we had the strikes right at the cross junction of those two runways. So that would have made 3 or 4 squadrons which are deployed at Sargodha unavailable to them. Similarly, squadrons which are deployed at Noor Khan would have been unavailable to them. So they would have suddenly found their air capabilities come down drastically because of these strikes. And had these operations continued, this would have got down their effectiveness of the air even further. So on one hand, they were confident that they have stuck, but they had no idea what they had stuck. So, and on the second hand, they were seeing that they were losing this capability to strike. LC was very responsive, and there were the deterrents which the Indian Navy had produced. So combined, I think, with all this, they picked up the phone and thought it's better to actually talk rather than continuing with this particular warfare. If I had to list out a couple of reasons for India's victory, I would say that we had better situational awareness, better battlefield transparency because we are better networked. And Army, Navy and Air Force, this situation was available to us in one manner for all of us. So hence we were able to take decisions better. So we not only knew the results of our strikes, almost real time, but also knew the results of his strikes, that he has failed, which he did not know. So compared to us, he was kind of blind. So hence it was easy for us to take decisions. Second thing I could say was why I can attribute to victory was, I think, clear political direction which gave us a free hand to plan operations. Third thing could be this multi-level coordination which I spoke about right at the level at the very apex level of, you can say, CCS, then the NSA doing things, RM and the Chiefs of Staff Committee. And last is, we have spoken at some forum about this notion of victory. In earlier wars, I said this was a different war. In earlier wars, a notion of victory would have been through capture of territory, POW, destruction of equipment, etc. But in this, I think the notion of victory was based on sophistication of our operations, precision and timing which we displayed, the speed and tempo of our operations, and having a ceasefire at a place and time of our own choosing. So these were few things which helped us achieve that notion of victory. In any case, this particular warfare was not fought all in physical domain. So when warfare is transiting from physical to synthetic to cognitive domain, the matrices of victory will have to be defined slightly differently. So as far as my personal experience is concerned, I think I'd say that there was a very high tempo of these operations occurring between 7th to 10th, a large number of coordination meetings before that, and most of these operations, if you recall, happened all during night. So daytime we were in office trying to coordinate things, and pace of operations used to pick up at about 7:30 and then continue till next day morning. The spatial difference of this operation which were taking place over the length and breadth was huge actually. And they were happening in all three domains, cyber and cognitive domain also. So it was difficult to keep pace with this all the time. So unless you have integrated structure in which everyone, decision makers, etc., are all there, in future this will be a major challenge. You have to be there together to take decisions. You can't be in different places. Otherwise, means obviously over here we didn't seek political decisions because those decisions were very clear. But if we had to seek political decisions, it would have taken time. Whereas in these operations, in this fast pace of operations which are happening overnight and at various domains over large distances, to understand that itself becomes a bit challenging. This is all I thought I'll talk about Operation Sindoor, unless you people have some questions for me. Now I'll talk about some issues related to after this operation. I did speak about escalation control. I'll now talk about escalation control and an exit strategy. In this particular operation, what we did was, as said earlier, that we made an escalation ladder at 5 levels. So on day 1, what would happen, and next level of escalation, and then what would happen next. This is all based on, whatever you do, what is the possible enemy reaction to it, and the probability of it from high to low. He may undertake 10 type of actions from high to low, and then you say the highest probability of action, say, are 3. Whether they will succeed or they will not succeed. It depends on what kind of action it is, how difficult it is or how easy it is. So if it succeeds, then what are your options? And if it fails, what are your options? So you continue, this is the second cycle. And but after that, you put on your options on the table, which you hope will succeed. And you continue like this, going up the ladder. So you make it up because, unless you have thought through this whole thing and passed it down, if you want to change in between, this is not possible. I can give you a small example. At about, once the Pakistanis had picked up the phone and they said they wanted to talk at about 10, the air chief had asked me that whether he should strike Sargodha. I said, go ahead. And then he also, I said, please identify 2 more targets. So he had, one of the targets he identified was Sukardu. But unfortunately, we gave a yes, but no, after some time the weather was bad over Sukardu. But they had to change over to Bulhari. Now from Sukardu to Bulhari, which is near Karachi. Now unless you had practiced, you had the targeting data, everything thought on D-Day, before to D-Day, this is not possible to do this. So unless your escalation matrix is correct and people are aware of what is to be done, right from D1. So it's not possible because of this fast pace of operations. Exit. I think a couple of principles which we thought in this escalation matrix which laid for ourselves was that the last strike or the winning note will be always delivered by us and not by the Pakistanis. So that was one. Second thing was we thought that communication is important. That means we have a physical line, so you keep communicating. And third important thing is battlefield transparency, about which you have spoken. In your escalation, unless you are clear as to what you are doing and the results of it and what enemy is done and the results of it, you will not be able to take the next step in that escalation ladder. So battlefield transparency, and that comes out of networking. That's very, very important. I think, and your exit strategy. When you said that we will enter a ceasefire at about 5 o'clock, this all happens because you understanding the battlefield far better than your adversary, and then you can take a decision that, okay, we'll quit because we are now at a winning term. We are at a winning term at 9:30, 10. We carried on those strikes till about 1 o'clock, so we ensured we had a better victory, and then we said, okay, we will talk at 3 o'clock. So that ceasefire is to be decided at 5. That was what we decided. We have to remember that no ceasefire will be perfect. If you think at 5 o'clock all guns will stop and they'll be all quiet on the Western Front, it's not possible. At every little level between commanders, there'll be something or the other which he wants to achieve or the adversary wants to do, he's lost something. This will continue. That should not actually kind of spoil the ceasefire, which has been agreed at the very apex level. So this is what happens actually in the war which we're seeing in Iran. So when you decide that the ceasefire, operations will continue, so have some kind of a patience till it comes down. If you don't have that, if you remember on 10th by evening, there were a lot of drones flying, a lot of reports, there were a lot of pressure actually as to what's happening on the border. So that's a major challenge. The next thing I would like to speak about is nuclear risk reduction and space for conventional operations. You're all aware that I won't go into this, development of the nuclear doctrines, etc., both the sides. Finally, at the end of it, it was for Pakistan is full spectrum deterrence. There they think that the space for conventional operations is very, very less, and we are always trying to expand that space for conventional operations by various kind of strategies. Earlier cold start, and now it's dynamic response strategy. So I think this space for conventional operations has been possible under this nuclear overhang because of 2 or 3 reasons. First is the doctrine, NFU doctrine, no first use doctrine, automatically expands that space for conventional operations from our side. If both the sides had a first use kind of a doctrine, the space for conventional operations would have got reduced. Second, there was no territorial aggression as far as Pakistan is concerned. So obviously in this kind of a non-contact warfare, this helps. The onus of escalation, again, what we hit was terror targets because the terrorists had perpetuated acts of terror onto our territory. The onus of escalation into the conventional domains squarely lay with Pakistan. He had no other option actually. In case he wants to respond, there are no terror targets here. So he had to escalate into the conventional domain, and that very nation then escalating into nuclear domain is slightly difficult. So we are quite sure that we should be able to manage that. There was a small episode about what I think Air Marshal Bharti was asked, that Kirana Hills episode. I think I'll clarify this. At occasions it's been asked whether Kirana Hills were hit or not. That's where their nuclear facilities are there. And with Bharti had rightly clarified that we did not target Kirana Hills. I can maybe given kind of an explanation. Before those strikes, we had sent in a lot of loiter ammunitions at Sargodha. And Kirana Hills is about 10 kilometers north of Sargodha. So the loiter ammunition is looking for radars which are in around Sargodha. And it's got a lifetime, means time. It will loiter for about 2 hours, and once it doesn't find a target, then it comes down and hits somewhere. It must have come and hit one of those hills. So that could be one of the reasons as to what people asked. Yes, because Pakistani media also showed some kind of images in which there was smoke coming out from Kirana Hills, and they were asking. Next is a new normal. You heard about this new normal, which the Prime Minister has said that there'll be talks and terror will not go together, blood and water will not flow together, will not tolerate cross-border terrorism, and will make no distinction between and their handlers, and then will not be blackmailed or by nuclear blackmail. So these are the new normals. But what is the new normal? I think it's a new rule to prevent from a crisis to emerge, and if it still emerges, then how to better handle it. So after, say, COVID-19, the new norm was work from home, which has caught on with people and still continues with it. So after demonetization, the new norm was use of digital currencies. So that became a new norm of how you actually work. So Operation Sindoor onwards, we'll have this preparation 24/7 that I think is important. We should have an ISR capability which is much deeper than what it exists today. We should have a capability for real-time intelligence analysis, and we should be able to strike anywhere where we want. So these are the kind of capabilities what we should have. Some of the lessons we've learnt out of this conflict, but sometimes I feel it's far more important to understand what lessons the adversary has learnt. And to those lessons, how is he trying to, whatever shortcomings he's noticed, what is he doing about it? I think that is more important than the lessons what we have learnt. I'll now talk about the possible lessons which Pakistan would have learnt and what it has done. First is, I think there was a lack of integration between the three services. Second is lack of coordination between conventional and its nuclear forces, and a singular command authority over conventional and nuclear missiles, both. So all this he's kind of remedied. He's created an Army Rocket Force, which is separate from a National Strategic Command. So he separated out his conventional and nuclear forces. He's created this port of CDF. He's created a joint defense headquarters, and this chairman joint chief of staff committee which was earlier held, that post has been abolished. So that thing was non-functional because although he was chairman joint chief of staff, but all three services were acting independently. So now what they have done is they made a CDF, put all the three services under him, and also put the nuclear forces under him, so for a better kind of coordination. They did it by the 27th amendment in November 25, 6 months after this operation. And now they have provided a force to this particular amendment, which they have done, a force of law, by passing the Defence Forces Act 2026 on 20th of August, this month itself. Second thing, so these are the drawbacks which Pakistan has noticed, and this is how he is trying to rectify it. The implications of this. Obviously, the first implication of this is good and bad. So the space for conventional operations increases further because he separated out his nuclear and conventional forces. So hence there is more space for conventional. Then it makes his long-range artillery, long-range rockets and missiles more usable. And hence that would be a new threat or a new challenge in next kind of a conflict for us. So this is what we should be aware of. The next thing which Pakistan has always been seeking security in pacts and alliances. And right after this particular conflict, he was trying to secure security, national security, by some more accords and alliances. First, he tried this SMDA, Strategic Mutual Defense Agreement, with Saudi Arabia on 17th of September 2025. And now, of course, is this Mecca Accord, which they declared on 7th of August, in which the only statement which they said that is for mutual deterrence, for strengthening deterrence, and attack on any one country would be considered as an attack on either of the. So I think that has got major security implications for India. Unless the pact says that it is not against India, we must assume that it is against India. And we should, the warfare, I said, is changing. So this pact may not allow joint application of force through land, which we conventionally think. A new kind of front, because geographically they are separated, but warfare today is not happening only on land. So it's a maritime, airspace, cyber, space, electromagnetic spectrum, they still can be joined. So there is a new kind of a threat, and we'll have to factor this in our future strategies. Then, of course, Pakistan lacked sovereign ISR capabilities. His satellites were just about 2. So if you've seen in the last, after Operation Sindoor, he's made a concerted effort. He's launched 4 more satellites in 2025 and 26. If you see 6 more satellites, that's a huge capability jump which they have created. So he supplemented this with the number of HAPS program and number of hail and mail UAVs. And of course, he's looking at selective acquisition. His defense budgets are less, far less than us. He can spend less money. So he's selectively creating capabilities in say, electronic warfare, counter-UAS system, such kind of selective capability building he's doing. So we'll have to take all this thing into account for next round whenever it comes up. For us, I think we'll have to reassess our procurement priorities. That is one. Reassess our war fighting strategies. Create new capabilities. Should be able to create new capabilities, create a new kind of a deterrence, non-nuclear strategic deterrence, which could be based on very frontier technologies, based on space, cyber, quantum, artificial intelligence. And of course, we should look at strategic realignment, keep our channels of communication open with all our friendly nations. So I'll end over here and maybe try and answer your doubts or questions on this particular operation or of its aftermath. Thank you.
So friends, you had this master class on Op Sindoor. I think there's hardly any aspect which has not been covered. And I open this now for any comments and questions. So I take a few questions together. Kindly keep it short so that we can take more. We'll have about half an hour of answering. So let's start with Yogi. कैसे जैसे आप 3 ओके माइक दो भाई उधर सामने 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 हाँ
Thank you, sir. Very, very educative talk. We learned so much. I have just 2 questions here. One is that this is the first time during Op Sindoor that the commercial satellites actually were deployed over that area of operation, even before the actual operation began. Planet Lab and so on and so forth. So I'm wondering how it is that Pakistan was not able to acquire the situational awareness because of the fact that the imagery was commercially downloadable on both sides. And to that extent, perhaps it compromised our capability because the Pakistanis also would be knowing as to what we are doing. That's one question. Also, of course, the satellite, feed from the Chinese satellite might also be received by the Pakistanis. The other question, of course, is the larger one. You take Ukraine into Gaza, for example. Gaza, Iran conflict. So you have a combination now of missiles and drones being used. Basically, neutralize their defense systems of the, let's say, something like US or, in this case, Ukraine by Russia. So the question here is that now that we take into account the Chinese also developing this drone capability with situational awareness embedded into them, how are we actually preparing ourselves to face that kind of a combined, let's say, this kind of a situation, this combined approach, to, let's say, to target our air defense? Thank you.
Okay, yeah.
Thank you very much for a very enlightening and informative presentation. My one question is, which was also a controversy, India lost some aircrafts. There were some Indian Air Force aircraft shot down, and till date we never have learnt what is the reality. If you can kindly explain.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, there. Oh, पीछे.
There is a perception that was gaining a lot of leverage because of these Beidou navigation satellites of navigation system of China. It was able to track down the Indian basically combat aircraft. So, and my second question is that why is basically Operation Sindoor is still continuing, because Indian Still saying that it is still ongoing because it wants to prepare for the future, I mean, conflicts. So, thoughts on that? Yeah.
Okay. Terrorism is not over, and hence Operation Sindoor continues. That's a short answer to this. There are a couple of questions actually. They're very interesting. So commercial satellite imageries are available from a number of US companies like Maxar, Planet Lab, and Black Sky. And similarly today, there are a number of Chinese companies also in the field which provide you commercial images. There's always a waiting period, and it's based on your contracts. So it's not that immediately things are available. You've done a contract, they'll give you those kind of images on a particular payment under different models. I think Pakistan felt that when I said that they were blind and they did not know the results of their strikes. They were actually, after 10th also till about 12th, they were trying their best to obtain images so that they have some evidence of some targets which they have hit. But unfortunately, once they did not get, they tried other Chinese satellites also. But since they are not able to hit any target, they got no evidence. But it created doubt in their mind after this also, that people have maybe hidden this fact from them because of Indian insistence. So every kind of a theory there, but the fact is that they're not able to hit targets. They did, of course, try. So commercial satellites imageries from Chinese are available to anyone. Anyone can buy. So it's not that Pakistanis only. Regarding this Chinese and Pakistani collusivity during this particular operations in present and in future, that's a larger question. Maybe he just referred to a specific thing. I can say this, that there is something which is known as a fact, something you can make as a reasonable assumption, and something would lie in the realms of speculation. The fact of the matter is that Pakistan's inventory of its platforms today, 70 or 80% is of Pakistan, Chinese origin, whether it is land-based, air platforms, some naval platforms. We also have an inventory of foreign platforms, and when we get those platforms, the maintenance and serviceability is the responsibility of the OEM, and their representatives are normally in the countries in which this equipment is deployed, because they're supposed to keep them serviceable. It's been used for war fighting, and in war, if this equipment is not available, then what's the use? So Chinese OEM people would have been there, and that's what Chinese have admitted, that their people were there. So there is nothing new in this. Today in our country also there would have been Russian OEMs, there could be French, there could be Israeli OEMs actually supporting that same equipment which you are holding. So it's a contractual obligation, which we must understand this. Satellite imageries, they are commercially available. You can buy it from Americans, you can buy it from Chinese. So to say that provision of satellite imageries to Pakistan by Chinese would have, provided some kind of intelligence would again be incorrect to say. What goes below this, that means your targeting data through secure VPN links, etc., that could be passed, about which we actually would not know. So that could be falling under the thing of speculation. But one or two things I can say. Pakistan's understanding of the situation was quite poor even in the maritime domain. I can give you one example. Their daily briefings would tell where a carrier battle group was moving in the Arabian Sea. And when I checked back from the Western Naval Command as to where the carrier battle group was on those days, it was almost about 100 to 200 nautical miles off from that place. So means either they were getting wrong inputs of our carrier battle group, or means they were just not accurate because they were dependent only on foreign sources for this. Why I am saying so is because their long-range maritime aircraft did not fly at all. So if you don't fly long-range maritime aircraft, if you don't have satellites, how do you get images, or how do you know where the carrier battle group is? It is from outside. So the source of information may have been, so it's a speculation on that side. But on the other side, the army has told me that whenever they redeployed a couple of their strategic in the sense, this BrahMos units, land-based units, the Paki did come to know that we have deployed this. So was it based on satellite intelligence, or was it based on human intelligence? So that's again a method of speculation. So one can't really say that what is correct. Warfare That's the first question. Second part, that's evolving. Yes, it is evolving, and drones, electro ammunitions, these are going to play, some people believe, a major role. There's one view that this particular thing is being overhyped. There's one view that this is going to change the course of warfare. There are two different kind of views. But one thing is for sure, the lower airspace which exists today will never be the same again. This is going to get hugely crowded, and in this airspace, unless we have visibility and transparency as to what's happening, if we are not able to control this lower airspace, we will not be able to win this battle. So that is the fundamental requirement. Whether this will play a major role or not, that a future conflict will tell. But the understanding of this lower airspace, this below, say, a kilometer, kilometer and a half, across the length and breadth of India, especially in the border areas, for future will be very important for us.
Yeah. That's.
Thank you, sir, for excellent information you provided on Operation Sindoor, sir. So, few things which add to, which comes to my mind, will be there in your mind, but I don't know for whatever reason. A nuclear threshold was reduced, for my understanding, in addition to whatever you said, is the successful attack on the Noor Khan airport, where their nuclear control units were there. And Kirana Hill, whether we hit intentionally, unintentionally, leave that speculation out. I don't want to go into that. But that does give a fear that now next time it may be hit there also, even if we are not hit intentionally. So that bring the threshold down. Drone warfare will be a new part, and weapon export will, of course, of India has gone up after Operation Sindoor. Thank you, sir.
Okay. आगे जाओ. Oh, there.
Sir, over here. Sir, after the Pakistani AWACS was shot down, did Pakistan get one almost immediately from Turkey?
Okay. Pradeep.
I've dealt in Defense Ministry, the Operation Pahalgam, when I was custodian of Union War Book, and thereafter 2611. By those comparison, I will say that this Operation Sindoor, it's not a war, but then it's a brilliant non-escalatory operation. You had a very good control over the escalation by those standards. Because in both those incidents of Pahalgam as well as 2611, the idea of escalation was hovering around the decision maker's mind. So this is one very good observation what we have made. Another what I would like to mention that there is a concept of kill chain. But this Operation Sindoor established the kill web. Now, just a suggestion that we should work on that, because there are various systems being integrated into one architecture. So we must focus on the kill web, and whichever element of that web is having an opportunity, they could take the target. Thank you.
So, let me say, kill web is part largely of a non-contact kind of an warfare. So to say that in future there will be only non-contact warfare will be entirely incorrect. So it's going to be a combination of contact and non-contact. We have borders which are disputed. So since it is land is involved, so obviously there will be contact warfare. So we have to be prepared for both kind of conflicts. The challenge for future conflicts is that contact warfare develops and is done in a certain time frame, and non-contact is done in a few minutes or hours. So there's a huge time differential. For contact warfare, you will have to understand, you will have to deploy, mobilize, you will have to deploy, you will have to posture, then phases of your attacks, etc. will happen. That may go on for about a week or 10 days or maybe more. Whereas non-contact, kill web, kill chains, etc. are slightly different. What kind of a strategy is to be adopted, what kind of a capability is to be created, that the services are looking at this doctrinally also and capability wise also. So we are looking at all these things because right now warfare by itself is a cusp of major change. Major change are going to come in how we're going to fight in future tomorrow. So that I think is a major change. I think we should not take the nuclear angle very lightly. So it's a serious challenge. So we should ensure that in fact nuclear targets are taken out from conventional targeting, and one will have to be careful in future. And that goes for both the sides. So there cannot be such kind of a mistakes. It creates a error actually and miscalculation from either sides. And in this time of, when I said that how my time was involved, this heightened tempo, heightened state of operations, in which you have to take operation decisions, you must just take a wrong decision. You may be tempted to take a wrong decision. So that should not happen. One should have to be very, very careful. Regarding this question of AWACS, that was based on our technical inputs, based on radar, which Air Force has claimed. That was a thing which we have claimed. And why this delay in announcing this? Because I think the Air Force are looking at firm evidence from our sources inside to give some evidence of this debris, etc., which didn't come, so they had to come out with these technical details later.
Yes.
Sir, allow me to speak in Hindi if I could. बचपन में पढ़ते थे पृथ्वीराज चौहान ने मोहम्मद गोरे को 17 बार माफ़ कर दिया था, फिर बाद में क्या हुआ सबको मालूम है। तो ऑपरेशन सिंदूर में भी लगता था कि 5 दिन जब इंडिया वाज गोइंग अहेड सो मच, तो वी कुड हैव डन फ्यू मोर डेज एंड टेक केयर ऑफ द प्रॉब्लम फॉर लॉन्ग टाइम। तो क्या हो गया, कराची से मेक कर देते या कुछ नेवी को यूज़ करके कर देते।
ठीक है, रुक जा, just one moment here. Yeah.
Sir, we started with the lecture of yours. We're teaching a big lesson to Pakistan. So can we say this lesson is learnt by Pakistan for 1 year, 2 years, for how long? And we claim to be successful victory because of Noor Khan. It was a USA missiles there. And third thing is that after this war, then this General Munir became Field Marshal and he is being invited in the White House. And after that we have a Makkah agreement, Makkah. So do you think it's going to have an impact on Indian, or like Gautam, our ambassador said, they are just individual country, not all the three together, just 0 plus 0 is 0. Thank you.
There, Piche.
Good evening, sir. First of all, congratulations on your phenomenal 49 plus years of military life. And we just recently saw the release of the Discovery documentary bringing Operation Sindoor in the public domain. And although the tactical lessons are clear, but there is an talk about a mentioning about a call from Vice President J.D. Vance before the ceasefire. If you could throw some light on it.
पहला जो आपका सवाल था कि हमारे युद्ध के जो ऑब्जेक्टिव्स थे वो हमने डिसाइड किया था, टेरर टारगेट थे। जब वो अचीव हो गए तो वी न्यू दैट पाकिस्तान विल रिस्पॉन्ड एंड वी विल बी एबल टू विन। सो वी वांटेड टू हैव अ डिसाइसिव विक्ट्री इन दिस शॉर्ट टाइम। ये हमारा वो नहीं था कि लड़ाई को जो है प्रोलॉन्ग करना है, तो ये कभी भी उद्देश्य नहीं था। जब हमारे लिमिटेड ऑब्जेक्टिव्स मीट हो गए तो हमने जो है जब उन्होंने बोला, हमने नहीं बोला उन्होंने शांति के लिए, उन्होंने हमसे बात की, तो दैट गॉट आउट। सेकेंड थिंग इज दिस लेसन्स विच यू हैड आस्क्ड। आर्म्ड फोर्सेज आर ओनली वन इंस्ट्रूमेंट ऑफ नेशनल पावर, देयर सो मेनी अदर इंस्ट्रूमेंट्स। सो द आर्म्ड फोर्सेज may have taught a lesson, but there are other instruments of power which also government has operationalized, is held the IWT in abeyance. That should put in some sense into Pakistan. There are economic issues also. diplomatic also. All this combined will, I hope, try and change state behavior in Pakistan. As far as Mecca agreement, I always said that what I said earlier, that 0 plus 0 is 0, we should not assume that at all. As a military man, you should be able to always think that the threat is high, and it means plan for the worst, but hope for the best. That's what in the military they say. So you must assume that this is a challenge against you and must prepare accordingly in the military domain. That's important. And what was this question? The last one you said? Huh?
JD Vance.
See, I can only talk about this particular ceasefire. What happened in the military domain? I told you that they picked up the phone at about 9:30, spoke. We chose our own time. The DGMO said he's not available till about 3 o'clock, and then 3 o'clock he said, and then we decided at 5 o'clock. So the ceasefire is decided between two DGMOs. And that's it. Means I don't see the role of anyone else. How did this particular information get leaked out to the Americans that they tweeted before we could announce this? Again, I'm really not sure, but it didn't leak out from us. So there has been some kind of an understanding between this us, the DGMO level, that this any kind of conversation which it helped, you maintain due secrecy on this. So I think that it somehow got leaked out from the other side. That's what I feel.
But with
That's
massive,
yes.
massive
Yes.
Okay, here.
Jain sir, I have three very specific questions.
Okay,
so it was declared during Op Sindoor by the Prime Minister that any act of terror will now be considered an act of war. Under that policy, is it now prudent to expect that the next time an act of terror happens, directly Pakistani military targets will be struck instead of just terror targets, since we saw a lot of senior Pak military officers at Murid ke funerals and in Bahawalpur as well?
There.
See, one of the thing is probably what happened on the actual military side is a different thing, but narrative war we seems to be, I mean, as per media, maybe Pakistan might have won. So what are we doing for narrative war? Number one. Number two, US relationship with India and Pakistan on this. On the day of 10th of May, this seems to have changed. I mean, US became a bit hostile towards India. So what has been the case for?
Yeah.
Good afternoon, sir. So my question is, how do you contextualize the civil defense cooperation beyond bureaucratic and political chambers? During Operation Sindoor, we saw how this active act of cognitive warfare was practiced by Pakistan. So this blurs the line between rigid army institutions and the civilians that took part in actively resisting and countering that. So how are civilians integrated in this larger plan of defense, if they are?
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Please stand up.
Okay. Thank you, sir. My question is related to some of the learnings and lessons which have been institutionalized post Operation Sindoor, and also if you could do a comparative assessment of lessons incurred from the engagement or this clash with Chinese, because we have been moving multiple pieces of puzzle, basically, and do all these add up to this big picture? Are we taking some of these lessons and moving forward with them, institutionalizing them, because our adversaries are? Okay. So, thank you.
So, the first question was acts of terror which will be treated as war. Acts of cross-border terrorism, that could be treated as an act of war. What is war itself is, the whole definition is changing today. So what used to be declared kind of wars which we've seen in World War II, World War I, Those kind of wars do not exist anymore. Conflict does exist. So a different kind of war will be fought. And in this kind of war, what are the kind of targets? How will you achieve those objectives of the war? That all is changing very fast. It's not only because of technology, but because of geopolitics also. So in this, everything could be on the cards, or the options, I would say. Civil-military cooperation was one question, and I think whenever the war was being fought in conventional domains, land, sea, and maritime, there were forces created for this. There's the army, there's the navy, and the air force. But when we are going to fight wars in new domains of cyber, space, cognitive warfare, I think the structures, the kind of people who will man them will be entirely different. So if we want to create a cyber force, a big cyber force, there will be a huge component of civilian cyber experts into it. If we create a space command or a expanded space agency, there will be a lot of scientists from ISRO, DRDO, or maybe new startups, part of this organization, they'll serve in this. And similarly, when we look at cognitive warfare, whether it is psychological operations, media, creation of content, etc., again for this, there will be civilian contact. So in future, even the combatants are going to change in the kind of warfare. So we must keep all these ideas open. The narrative war, or the endearment of, say, Pakistan to, US, and, a couple of people have these kind of talk. What they have won probably is this war of servitude, sycophancy, and servility. We have maintained our dignity and said that we did not ask for this ceasefire. So that may have costed us, but we stood straight. We've not bowed down. Nobel Peace Prize and things like that. We didn't go in for that.
But a connected question here would be, how did our media cover this? What was, it was plus minus for our people?
This media and perception management, or information warfare, cognitive warfare, as it will be fought, or it's called now with various kind of names, is again a kind of an evolving concept. Whether armed forces will be part of it, they should drive it, I'm not very sure. Our job is actually to create facts. The narrative can only be built on facts. So that is one important job. Should we create contents for media warfare in future? Do we create, capabilities in this particular field? That we have to see, because in this particular operation, the media war room was opened by Minister of Information and Broadcasting. They are supposed to deny it. Obviously, there are gaps. By the time news is breaking out because of in social media or in Pakistani or our media, which could be false, which could be planted, to understand that and deny that, it was obviously taking a lot of time. So conventional methods of this probably will be, if you want to use that, you will be handicapped. So tomorrow you will have to automate these kind of things. The armed forces on their part have understood this problem, and they're trying to meet these challenges for the future.
Okay, oh sorry, after then.
Jai Hind, sir, I'm Shailesh from National Defense. May I request you to please talk about the collateral damage or the casualty which we suffered, especially the political controversy which was created lately about the martyrs, casualty being hidden by the Defense Ministry. This is very important. I don't want to litigate, but in case we can take the second one, Deputy Chief of Army Staff, Rahul Singh had said that the Chinese were in active collusion. They were providing the real-time intelligence. Since you said something else, so just want a clarification.
Okay,
thank you, sir.
सर मैं हिंदी में प्रश्न पूछने में ज़्यादा सहज हूँ. तो सर जितना पाकिस्तान को विदेशी सहयोग मिला, वो भारत की नीति उसमें कहाँ पिछड़ गई, और क्या हमें ये आत्मनिर्भरता की ओर नहीं प्रेरित करता?
Okay, there's some hand I saw there. Yes, there.
Let me introduce myself before I ask the question. I'm a veteran. I'm 86 years old. When I joined the army, the Chinese war started within a year of my joining the armed forces. So I took part in that as a 19-and-a-half-year-old youngster. Then 65 war started. I happened to be there itself. 71 war started, I was there again. All as a company commander or a company officer. Then something happened in Sri Lanka, I was there again. In between something happened in Nagaland and this thing, I was there again. Now I am, on 31st, I will become 86 years old. Now when I saw this wars going on, what happened to me that, what is all happening? I'm speaking from the perspective of a person who has seen the previous wars and who is seeing the war that is being fought today. There is the thing that come to my mind that officer asked the question about the civil defense. The Prime Minister made a mention of it in his speech from that you are going to have a civil defense in a big way. It is important because he made this thing that the war is not going to be fought at the borders. So it will be fought in our cities. It will be fought, perhaps something will happen in Noida. Then what do? I just can't keep, earlier the concept of civil defense was कि भाई रात को लाइट ऑफ करके रखो नहीं तो हवाई जहाज देख लेंगे. That was the concept of civil defense. What is the concept of civil defense today? Because you don't know the enemy is going to hit a target which may be a civilian target or a target which is both civilian and military. So what do? So these are the thoughts that coming to persons outside, even amongst the community, armed forces community who have retired a long time back. And they think about it, what's happening. They see the world has changed so much. The second aspect was, there was something called Geneva Convention. Is it still on? Then the third was, there are certain agreements between two countries that was sacrosanct. Is it sacrosanct today? We don't know. So we are confused. Your thoughts on this, Anil Chauhan?
So that was the last question. I will round up after this.
So short answer to this question which was asked in Hindi, that Atmanirbharta is a requirement of the future. Atmanirbharta not only in defense manufacturing, Atmanirbharta in our thoughts, in our ideas, our own kind of understanding of how things are changing, how our world is changing, how warfare is changing, our own Indian strategies, tactics. I think that's important. All this is important. The casualties which we suffered, obviously every soldier we lose is important, especially from the point of view of the family of the soldier. I'm not trying to trivialize it, but considering the context of this particular operation, these 4 or 5 casualties happened during the Trans-LC fire. And this Trans-LC firing, of course, there's been a ceasefire on since 2023, I think. But before that Trans-LC fire, people would get injured. So in this, there was a heightened Trans-LC firing for those 4-5 days. And obviously, such kind of casualties are expected, and no one denied this. Actually, no one asked. The issue is that no one asked because everyone thought that it was too less considering the scale of this operation. So it only came about later. Chinese help I've already kind of covered, sir. To your last question again, sir, that firstly, let me wish you a happy birthday in advance, 31st of August. So you're completing 86. again, sir, the kind of, I also learned war like you've learned or you fought. But now, at this stage of my life, we played out a war which was entirely different. Now, whether such kind of wars will happen in future, maybe this is the direction, but I'm not very sure, and I cannot say conclusively that all wars will be like this only. But certainly this is a direction towards which we are moving, in which the battlefield space is expanded exponentially. So people in Noida, there is no front, there is no rear, means there is no depth, etc. of battlefield, there is no linearity in warfare. So all this is changing. This is a different kind of a concept. Air defense will be becoming a major challenge because all strikes, etc. will use the medium of air. Lower airspace, and lower space till about 100 kilometers. This is going to be the contest of future. Prime Minister has already said that we need to have some kind of a Sudarshan Chakra to protect this. So work is on towards it. But such kind of war will require everyone's participation. They will get involved into it, even if it affects them. So as citizens, we must be aware as to what's happening. These are different kind of challenges which the nation will face in future. Thank you.
So thank you very much. I think your talk has certainly raised a lot of awareness about how the warfare itself is changing. And we are living in a period of massive change. And I think it won't be very easy even for the military planners to plan for the wars about which we know very little how they are going to be fought. I think that's the point that you made. Because of the changing nature of a battlefield, the multi-domain nature, and even defining victory. What is it that we define victory as? And I think the point that you made that these wars are going to affect everyone, and everyone is in a way a participant. And citizens have to be aware. So there has to be kind of a dialogue. I think this dialogue has helped that citizens would understand better. We always think war ho raha hai, armed forces are fighting and we are sitting here. But actually that is not the case. There are so many other factors and external players. You also talked about nuclear risk reduction. You talked about the exit strategies and all that. But I think what was very revealing and not many people knew till you told us that how it was all planned. This is those 23rd to 6th. So that you gave us a glimpse as to what was happening at your level, at political level, at the level of services. And you also kind of gave a indication as to how these integrated structures are now evolving. I think CDS's task was really to put in place those integrated structures, and the work has begun. And of course, it will be a long process. And we have to integrate our structures for a war. We don't know what kind of a war it's going to be. But it's for everyone. It's, I think, a strange situation. But I think that way Operation Sindoor has been a tremendous, so to say, learning on the job. Probably, as you said, and this probably happened because you have all been thinking since the Russia-Ukraine war began, because there was, everybody was talking about Russia-Ukraine war, and then Gaza happened, and so many other things. So constant wargaming that went on, and in think tank circuits I can say there was a lot of way people were thinking ki kaisa war hoga, kaisa hoga. I'm sure this was happening within the government also. But perhaps one of the most important factors here was the clarity at the political level. No confusion, no nothing. And as you said, the armed forces got together and they said that we will do what we are. And in fact, the deficiencies would not come in the way. And then you planned within those constraints. And I think beautifully executed. And Pakistan has learned its lessons But I think it's learning a bit too fast. And it is, so we have to be also seeing what Pakistan is really doing, because I think Pakistan is up to a lot of things. And we have discussed in other fora also how they are very quickly learning. And this Mecca Accord, etc., a lot of things are being written. We should take it rather seriously. And I agree with you, 0 plus 0 in this case does not add to 0. It is probably much more than that. So we all learnt a lot, and the gentleman here asked about the narrative warfare, the strategic communication, which is an extremely important part of war fighting. In fact, we are still fighting that war. Pakistan abhi kuch bolte rehte hain, and still a lot of doubts, questions keep on. So I think this is an ongoing process, and as you said, Operation Sindoor is not ended, and we remain prepared for it. So, but it's been a wonderful experience learning from you, the primary source as to how the war was planned and fought. Thank you so much. Namaskar. Thank you.
सन्तु निरामया सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः.
Thank you.